Leo Jones, not a famous name, but the name of a man who experienced a heinous injustice. It's the year 1981, and he was convicted of killing a police officer. After several hours of investigation, he came up with a confession that he was the one who did murder the certain police officer. But come the mid-80s, the officer who was interrogating him was relieved of duty for his ethical violations and repeated use of torture. And also around the same time, Leo Jones had admitted that he was forced into that confession. But yet still, he was still put on death row. And in the year 1998, he was killed via lethal injection. And this all coming from the Death Penalty Info Center in 2019. Today, I will be explaining why the US government should abolish the death penalty. With all the proven flaws and the expensive costs that come with capital punishment, the abolition of the death penalty would not only erase the chances of our loved ones falling victim to the death penalty, but also it would lower our tax rates that we have to pay for the death penalty to be upheld. So first I will go into the problems of the death penalty, it being ineffective, it being flawed and very expensive. Then I'll go to some of the causes of why it still exists, being that it thought that it is effective and that it is still legal in our justice system today. And then I will go into the solutions to the death penalty, with it ultimately being total abolition. So the first problem with the death penalty is that it is an ineffective deterrent to heinous crimes. In 2009, the Death Penalty Info Center stated that the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminologists found that 88% of the nation's top leading criminologists didn't believe that the death penalty was an effective deterrent. The second problem with the death penalty is that there are many people who are being wrongfully accused and being sentenced to death. In 2019, the Death Penalty Focus has stated that since 1973, there have been 166 death row exonerations. And since 1976, 1,500 executions from the death penalty. This suggesting that with all of the people being exonerated, that there are multiple flaws in our justice system and that we are possibly executing innocent people. The third problem with the death penalty being that it costs more to keep an inmate on death row and to execute them than to keep them in prison for the rest of their life. In 2019, statistics stated that there's an average of 20 years that an inmate is on death row before the execution. And Safe California in 2017 published that California taxpayers are likely to save $150 million if the death penalty were to just be abolished. This is due to all of the high-tech facilities that death row and the death penalty are using. The guards have to be paid with these facilities, and the prosecution and the defense teams that are being paid for over these 20 years so that the death penalty can be instituted. And the investigators and the appeals that are involved in the death penalty. Now, with all these problems, what are the causes that are associated with the death penalty? First, being that there is a misassumption that it is thought to deter crime. As stated by Jones Institutional 2019 in a quotation, the death penalty is about protecting society from evil, not an eye for an eye, but to protect society from evil people that do evil things. Other than the attitudinal approach of this cause, there's also a structural cause, being that there are current laws in our justice system that allow for the death penalty to be taking place, as it is up to the state governments to determine if the justice system will use death penalty as a capital punishment or not. In 2020, the World Population Review published that 30 out of 50 of the states have not abolished the death penalty. So looking at the problems and the causes to the death penalty, what could be some of the possible solutions? Ultimately, the solution is to abolish the death penalty altogether. But this is not going to come unless the national government takes action. In order for the death penalty to be abolished in state governments, the national government must have a reform appeal that states that the state governments with the death penalty and still enforcing will not receive further funding from the further justice system if they do not abolish it. And if the death penalty were to be abolished, it will definitely solve the problems. As stated in the Death Penalty Info Center in 2018, in the last 20 years, the homicide rate in the death penalty states that are enforcing it were 48% to 101% higher than the homicide rates of those states that don't have the death penalty enforced. So what can we do as a society to help abolish the death penalty? We can just support the abolition. We can be vocal about it. We can speak to others about it so that they can have the support as well. And also, if it comes on a ballot, vote for it. We can lobby to the government. We can write letters to the government to let them know that we, citizens of America, do not want the death penalty to be in place. So today, what was heard was an explanation on why the death penalty should be abolished in America. We looked at the problems of it being ineffective and expensive, the causes of it, with people thinking that it is effective, and that legally the death penalty still can be enforced in state governments. And the ultimate solution being that abolition of the death penalty is necessary. So, with people like Leo Jones, an innocent man who fell victim to this flawed and expensive, heinous way of punishment, the death penalty needs to be abolished. Thank you.